Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast. It is Jeremy Werner and Derek Piper live at State Farm Center, where we saw Illinois without its best player, without its leading scorer, without its lottery pick, just completely dismantle Penn State 91-52. It had shades of last year against Northwestern, where Illinois, without Terrence Shannon Jr., just rolled over Northwestern in a Big Ten win. We'll talk about where Illinois goes from here, what the status of Kasparas Jakucionis is, a forearm injury for him. We'll also talk about huge games from Ben Humrichous, 19 first half points, really sparked the Illini's 34-4 run. Yes, 34-4. It's ridiculous. Morez Johnson, huge game, 20-11 for the freshman. And then Tre White, another 20-point game quietly for Tre White. So, Derek Piper, what's your initial reaction to Illinois? You come in, it's Penn State that's kind of owned you here recently. Then Kasparas, you guys learned about an hour before the game, is out, and you get a little nervous against Penn State, but there wasn't many nerves outside of the first 5 minutes.
That was crazy. Yeah, a couple of different factors. Number one, when you look at Penn State, top 10 in the country in turnover rate, they full court pressure you. They're disrupted defensively. That's been one thing that Illinois has still struggled with at times. Missouri, they gave it away 17 times, and that was with KJ, who we know is the initiator of the offense, and a lot runs through him. So to take him out of the equation and Ace Baldwin can now slide to Kylan, I wondered how that would look and wonder if Illinois struggled to get going offensively. And then also have been wondering what the West Coast hangover, if there is one, if there's any, as I've always said, that trip's easy. Let's do it once every week, fly out there to Seattle or whatnot. But
did you get jet lagged while you're out there?
I don't know, man. I think I was okay. I think I was good, but I will be honest and say, I was a little fatigued coming home. It's a long trip, but shows these players don't have two kids waiting for them at home. They don't know what real exhaustion is like. Anyways, that's enough on that. But no, it was really impressive, and I think defensively just continues to stack on top of each other. The momentum that they are building at that end, to where they're currently sixth in the country in defensive efficiency after tonight. An elite rim defense that has some really good perimeter defenders as well, and just baited Penn State into taking a lot of tough twos, which they love to do. And it's just gotten to a point where I can't believe that we're almost halfway through the season and they're a top 10 defense in the country. But that says a lot about what they're building on that end. And then, Ben making threes, Tre White, again, low, I wouldn't say low usage, but just not having a lot have to be structured for him, and yet still so even quietly productive sometimes. So really impressive. Had no idea that you'd even win this game once you hear the KJ news, and then just to stomp them like that is a big deal.
And what a victory for the net, right? This was a top 40 KenPom team coming in, I think top 40 net team coming into this is a 12-3 team, 2-2 in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And you just demolish them, Derek. So I know getting quad one victories is really important, but a quad two victory by 39 points is significant in the net. So huge win in that regards for Illinois. Let's not lose fact. This is 5 straight wins. Like if you want to win in the Big Ten, you have to put together long winning streaks. And this team is now 4-1 in the Big Ten. So Michigan State's still the only undefeated team. And I think they're 3-0. So Illinois got 2 games up on them of playing already. So they're setting a great pace here early. And this is the part of the schedule you want to do it. And to beat Penn State at home, I know Illinois fans don't take that for granted. But Derek, they are the 6th defensive efficiency in the country right now. This is insane. Brad Underwood 3 months ago was saying they can't guard a middle school team. Now they are one of the elite defenses in the country. And I'm sad I didn't look this up for my quick hits. You mentioned at the rim, 9 of 19 on the layups. Washington couldn't make layups. Oregon couldn't make layups against Illinois. The length of this team is really coming out, but I just thought this would be a team that would outscore people, kind of like last year. But this team gives a crap on that end. And I asked Brad Underwood and I know you've written about it, Joey's written about it, but this is the story of tonight for me. I know Morez Johnson Jr. will get to is so much fun tonight. Ben Humrichous, shooting slump busted. Tre White continues to produce, but it's just this entire unit as a defense has gelled way quicker than I thought, and I think way quicker than Brad Underwood thought. How is this team, Derek, been an elite defense, because I didn't think this team was going to be even close to capable of it.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. It's in the territory of, will this be Brad Underwood's best defense to date? And which is crazy to talk about, because that 1 seed year was really, really top notch when you had Trent and Io on the perimeter and Kobe with his size around the rim. And that's one thing. The rim protection from last year to this year is night and day. And Tommy at the 5 at 7'1", and obviously when Morez is in there, it gives you size with verticality and length and everything like that. And then positional size around at different spots too. Tre at 6'7", and Ben's showed a lot more in terms of holding up at the basket, of walling up and doing a really good job of not fouling. So that they can do that to you and make you pull up for those 12, 15-foot 2-point jumpers, which you look at the stats for Penn State in the first half, and there was half their shots were non-rim twos, which is exactly what they want to do. They're great at taking away the three. And then, Kylan is really the fact that you can put him on the best player on the perimeter, and he's a tone setter. Dre can get after you with his athleticism and everything. So I think Joey and I were talking about this the other day, and he wrote about it yesterday, big picture about the defense. The roster build is, even going into this year, not saying that they totally turned a blind eye to defense, because they obviously didn't. Kylan was somebody that they really emphasized that when they got him. Like, we feel like he can be an elite on-ball perimeter defender. But outside of that, it still feels like offense was the preference, or it just was the emphasis in terms of offensive skill and everything. And I know that Brad did say that they definitely wanted more presence at the rim. And I think that's probably been the biggest. Kylan on the outside, rim protection on the inside. That's been a great match to provide this result. But, it feels like this was supposed to be above everything else in elite offense. And right now, their defense is the biggest thing that stands out about them on paper.
Well, it feels like everybody they've added has been a little bit better defensively than I thought. Like, even Kylan is elite. Like, I looked at you at halftime right after the start of the second half, and I'm like, where's Ace Baldwin? I didn't even know he was out of the game with an injury, but he had a back injury. But still, at that point, 0 points, 3 turnovers, 0 of 6 from the field. Like, that's an all Big Ten guard. And it seems like every night Kylan Boswell is limiting the best player to like one of their worst games, especially efficiency-wise, of the season. But we've talked about Kasparas has been way better defensively than I thought. And Sam Vecini, who now has him in his top 3, part of that is because he defends. Like, he actually defends and can be not a negative there. And in NBA, I think he's going to struggle a little bit, but I think he cares on that end. Tre White has really stepped up as a defender here recently. I think we thought he could be good because he was good at USC, but certainly wasn't last year at a bad Louisville team. But Tomislav, like, he's a better defender right now than an offensive player, unless he has a great shooting night, because in the post he's not great, but his rebounding has been better than I thought, and especially on the defensive end. But he's a big part of their at the rim defense. And while we questioned it earlier, I actually do think Ben Humrichous is defending pretty well now. Like, the grade out, that Underwood said earlier in the season, I didn't know if I believed him, but I do feel like Ben's playing better now. And look at him, he's actually rebounding. 15 rebounds in the last 2 games. I love seeing that from Ben. So as great as 5 of 9 from 3 was, and he just got red hot, seeing him rebound the last couple games has been really encouraging. But I just think all those guys have been a little bit better than I thought there.
No, that's well said. I do agree with that for sure. I thought this was a matchup where Ben might get tested, because this Penn State squad gets to the rim in a different way than Oregon does. Oregon posts you up a bunch of different guys, and Penn State relies a lot on speed from the perimeter to attack you downhill. And thought maybe Nick Kern as a slasher, who really was coming off his best game of the season against Indiana, would he be able to get by Ben or some of those other guys, hunting defenders outside of Kylan to use their athleticism and try to get to the basket. And it was something that Illinois just didn't really allow. They cut off those drives. They, again, did so without fouling. This Penn State came in tonight number 1 in the Big Ten during league play and free throw rate. I know a lot of that was juiced up by 45 free throws against Northwestern, but just the fact that they can, by putting that pressure on you, by getting to the paint, they can get to the line a lot. And Illinois is a defense that's not fouling all that much. They are walling up. You mentioned during the game the old Mozgov, for sure, that they're executing very, very well. And
whoever's teaching that in practice, elite job, because they are so good, and their transition defense is great. Dre Gibbs-Allhorn's the best fast break defender in the country, man.
Right. He's got the PF Flyers, man. He's been just popping athletically recently. That's been really fun to see. So
back in the 90s, we had those pump shoes that you thought
yeah,
made you leap a little higher or whatever. He
right.
must have them, man.
Good advertising there. I don't know that I did anything for you, but it was cool. No doubt about that. But yeah, I think and Joey quoted, Zach Hamer, who Brad has shouted out here recently. It just feels like they have good plans night in and night out on what numbers games they want to play, who they're comfortable with taking three. Like the fact that, forgive me for not trying to pronounce his name, with the NIU 7-footer decided I'm going to shoot 4 threes tonight. And like, you look at his career numbers and he's a 25% 3-point shooter career wise. Yeah. And
Conan started well, man. I'm just going to call him Conan because that's the first of his last names. The guy from the Netherlands?
Sweden.
Switzerland.
Yeah.
Switzerland. Is it Switzerland or Sweden?
Switzerland. You're right.
Yeah, Switzerland. He started off great, had like 4 blocks in the first 5 minutes, and then it all went downhill. Just some decision making by him was not too good.
No, and that's part of what they want. They want to bait some of those guys who don't have good career numbers into seeing that they're open, and then they want to take those shots. So they're gearing their defense to load up on a few guys. Of course, put their primary guys like Kylan and Tre, who's become that. I think Brad mentioned that tonight. I want to see Tre step into another level of being one of the better defenders out there, which athletically he should be. 6'7", good strength, laterally is pretty mobile as well, and just feels like this team has a good hunger about itself defensively. Yeah. That last year's team just didn't have that bite. I feel like on week after week, we're just like, when are they going to get their bite defensively? And it just, to their credit, they did better in postseason play, but this team has that, and I do think Kylan leads that.
It's such a credit to this coaching staff and Brad Underwood. I mean, if there's a year for Brad to win Big Ten Coach of the Year, like if this team wins the Big Ten title after changing basically every player. But Derek, this was also kind of like, this could be a preview next year, right? Like without Kasparas, and Ben Humrichous can come back, and more and more you'd like to get him back the way you're seeing him play. But this is why I'm so high on what next year can be. And, Will Riley had a rough game, started over Kasparas. I know he got 7 points by the end of this game, but it was another rough game for him. And it just looks more and more like, yeah, that guy could use another year. But you see what he can do with the ball in his hands. We know he can score. He just needs to find a way to do it more efficiently and add strength. But he had 6 assists tonight, 5 rebounds. Thought he did some good things defensively. But like Ivicic could be back, Tre White could be back. And you think about how old that team would be, how much chemistry there is there. And then maybe you add another piece or two, and then you get Morez, who is an absolute monster and can only get better. That's what gets you excited about this potential 2-year plan, right? Was what we saw tonight.
It all sounds great, doesn't it? Kylan in that backcourt, another year of progression for Dre, if he can build on this and step into something.
I don't know if we should look ahead that far in this day and age, but like
I know
that's what they hope, right?
Yeah, of course. And I think you'd probably like to try to find that sweet spot for Will, where, of course, he's hits his stride later in the year, and of course you want it as soon as possible. You want him getting confident, want him getting back into a mode where he can be that microwave shot maker. And I did like that his rebounding activity was better tonight. I think that's something that he needs to buy into again. He had that earlier in the year, and can that be an area where he impacts you, but where he is going to make a push and be a potential game changer, or at least moments where he can move the needle in a game. But the NBA will want to see a full sample size, see a full year of, and just in general, the growth potential from year 1 to year 2, from what your stock can look like, what your body can look like, all that. Maybe we are getting ahead of ourselves, but this was all set up going into this year with that conversation to be had. So this isn't something we're just pulling out of thin air there. But all that being said, Jeremy, one thing that I've been talking about, we've been discussing on the radio, I've been thinking about it, like, I never maybe gave this team enough credit or just enough consideration for to win the Big Ten title. I didn't know that they'd be consistent enough. That was my big question.
And what leads to consistency, Derek? Defense.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you have a terrible shooting night like Washington, and listen, they made 10 threes tonight. I didn't think they shot all that well outside of Ben
Right.
Humrichous, right? They were what, 5 of 24 outside of Humrichous from 3, or 5 of 22 from 3 outside of Humrichous. So like I thought at one point in that first half they missed 5 straight threes. They might regret that, but then Ben just goes off and Morez does his thing. But yeah, like it's defense. If you defend night in and night out, that's what Big Ten champions have to do. And right now, like I watch Illinois and I watch Michigan. Those are the two teams that I think are Big Ten champions. I think Purdue's going to have a role in there because they're so well coached. I just don't think they're as talented as those other two teams. I still got to see more from Michigan State. I got to see a bigger sample size of it. They got to play more games. But for me, like Illinois and Michigan look like the two talented and consistent teams. Like because Michigan, even the games they've lost, 3 games by like 6 points. Like that's a really good team.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, to see what they just did to UCLA and Vlad Golden goes for 36. Danny Wolf's had the year that he's having.
Such a tough matchup, man.
It really is. Yeah.
Like the Illinois-Michigan game. I can't wait for that.
It'll be spectacular. Yeah, no doubt about it. But I mean, just to see where Illinois' metrics are at right now, net, Ken Pom, that this is like projecting as like a 2 seed team, like a team that could win the Big Ten. That could be like a 2 seed. Like I never would have thought to that level that they would be doing this in January. And to their credit, it feels like Brad is pushing them with his whole let's build momentum. I think the bar is raising for what the consistency is supposed to look like. And maybe we're just supposed to treat this as maybe they will. I'm not going to say it's going to be smooth sailing by any means, but I have kind of, we talked about the process going in November and December and after the Northwestern loss and then the Tennessee missed opportunities. Like, all right, this is a process. We all know it's about building the momentum towards the finish line. And of course you want a good seed during that whole deal. But I've just been impressed and even kind of recalibrating that maybe now we're just supposed to treat this as a team that's hit a stride.
I agree with you because I just didn't know if they could guard well enough. Right. Like that, and the youth would be inconsistent. Like I expected a loss like Northwestern at some point. I expected them to lose to Alabama and Tennessee kind of early in the season, but 5 straight wins. I don't know if that team would be capable of that. And now they got a chance for 5 straight high major wins, and then you get Indiana on the road, Michigan State on the road. That's really when you can kind of make your case for Big Ten favorite moving forward. The word on Kasparas Jakucionis is he had a forearm injury the last couple of days that limited him in practice. He tried to go. Sounds like there's some inflammation, and Brad Underwood didn't put a timeline on this. But the fact that, and I know when people see quotes on Twitter or whatever that Brad's like, well, as long as he's out, whatever, I'm going to move on next man up. He said he did it in the best interest for the young man's future. He was warming up, right, but before this. So it's not like he's got some big thing. It's not like he's immobile. I wasn't watching him intently because I didn't know if he had any issue, right, because he wasn't on the injury report, which was interesting. And then all of a sudden he's out. But I don't think it's a long-term thing, Derek, but Brad Underwood said he just doesn't know right now. So I don't know if he'll give us much leading into the USC game, but if there's one game you could feel like you could hold them out a little bit, it might be USC. But I mean, the fact that he was going through a warm-up pretty intently makes me think this isn't a long-term thing, but we'll just have to wait and see.
You wouldn't imagine so. Yeah, not being on the injury report, being in uniform, going through warm-ups, it seemed like he was certainly intent on playing. And this wasn't a game. This isn't, bottom feeder Minnesota or whatever it might be, to where you just knew you could stroll into this, or by game, obviously you could stroll into the building and win no matter what you rolled out there. Like, you understood that Penn State was going to be a challenge, even with KJ, or at least in formulating kind of how you thought this would go. So it seems like it was a true try to go, and just has been something he's been dealing with. Brad didn't provide specifics on, like, was there a play? Is it a muscle strain? Like, what's the specific injury? Like you said, there is the mention of inflammation and discomfort. So I guess you treat it as day to day. But yeah, to your point, in terms of some extravagant wrap, or like there's obviously no cast or anything like that. That it, from that standpoint, there's no indication of some like major long-term thing. But we'll have to kind of just monitor and see.
We got to give a little credit to Kylan Boswell here tonight too, right? Like being the lead guard. Will took over lead guard duties at some point, but the fact they have another guy that they can go to. And to be honest with you, there's times I'm like, Kylan is the lead guard with Kasparas playing off ball. It seems to work pretty well too. So I just want to give a shout out to him. We talked about his defense, but his on ball work has been pretty dang good lately, Derek.
No doubt, yeah, and he brings a pace to him when he has the ball. I feel like they get out and run. Not to say that KJ obviously can't do it, but Kylan is specifically really talented at that, of getting up the floor and seeing some things. And I think he's growing. There was some talk at some point, in the fall of, hey, how much do you want to put the ball in Kylan's hands? Like he's been a point guard, even though he's shared the floor at Arizona with different guards, but just seeing and anticipating things and making the right plays and not turning it over. I know he did have 5 turnovers tonight, but he's had nice dump offs and he's just been able to make plays for others. And I've been impressed in what he's
3 of
done.
those turnovers were in the second half when the game was like nobody was really interested outside
Right.
of Morez Johnson Jr. Potentially wanting to play that game.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point for sure. So he's a guy that keeps building momentum, and it is a major asset to have 2 of those guys, especially when you run into a night where this isn't as lopsided, where there might be that lockdown defender like an Ace Baldwin. All right, we're taking KJ. Well, we still have Kylan who can get loose and create some things, and they can play off each other, obviously.
All right, Derek, let's give a little love to Morez Johnson Jr. What a performance, 20 points, 11 rebounds, both career highs for him. We know what he brings to the offensive glass, the defensive glass, what he brings defensively. And we saw all that tonight, right? He was just playing hard, getting those offensive rebounds. I think he had 6 second chance points tonight. But there's also some take a dribble, one dribble, finish at the rim. There were a couple of those in the first half on that big run. But we almost kind of doesn't get enough pub. I know fans love him, but how good is this freshman class when you put him into it? I know Will's struggling, but we know how good he can be. And we know Kasparas is going to be a top 5 draft pick here. But what a performance by him. And he's one of the most consistent and really one of the best players on this team because he does what he does at an elite level. It's just rare for a freshman, man. So what Morez thoughts you got?
Looked like a grown man in a Big Ten game as a freshman, which is saying a lot, obviously. And the rebounding presence is something that is not new, certainly, but he was going up with ferocity at the rim, and Penn State didn't have an answer for it. And even though they have a 7-foot shot blocker who looked the part for a good portion of that game, Morez just did his thing, and defensively provides great value. The fact that Brad has gained confidence and comfort with Tommy and Morez playing together, I think that's a great just as Brad says, a mode you can go to. You can play some high-low, and defensively it presents that size out there. So I think Morez to have like you said, you consistently know what you're getting with him. Has he dabbled with some foul trouble here and there? But I think a lot, yes, but a lot less than you maybe would have forecasted or thought that he could stumble into. Again, he still has to go to Indiana. He still has to go to Michigan State. If there's kind of places that you would think, or just in general, going on the road at tough opponents and physical games, he's going to see Omar Ballo and those type of things. Like that's where he could run into some of that stuff. But he's trending really well. I think he's playing with good confidence and comfort, and he is, as Brad mentioned, he simplified the game to where he's not overthinking. He's just kind of reacting.
Yeah, freshmen who can do what Kasparas is doing and do everything is really rare. That's what makes him so special. Freshmen that simplify it and just go, I got to be good at these 2 things. Like that's who thrive. And he is doing that right now. That's where I feel like Will is struggling. I feel like he's trying to do a little bit too much and just catch and shoot threes. If they go in, they go in. If they don't, they don't. And then just play hard, rebound, and defend. I think that when he's trying to do so much off the ball or off the dribble, I think that's when he's hurting a little bit. But let's get to a few super chats before we wrap this up, Derek. Rick C, $10. Is Morez Johnson a potential NBA caliber player long-term? 20 and 11 ain't bad, regardless the opponent. He's an NBA. He's going to have a chance at the NBA. Is he going to be an NBA starter? Probably not. But, I mean, Oscar Tshiebwe kind of guy. Like, he's in the NBA. So, yeah, guys who rebound and defend and run the floor and rim run, like there's still a place for those bigs in the NBA.
Yeah, a Robert Williams type. When Robert Williams was healthy with the Celtics, certainly. I mean, if he was 7 foot plus, it'd be an obvious
First
one. I
rounder.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Be a
right,
first rounder this year.
right. Yeah, exactly. So 6'10", it's not going to completely limit his NBA upside. I mean, there's still, even though you want spacing, the fact that Morez is a really athletic, rangy defender, I think that allows him to have that where you can have him on the court and those type of switching games and whatnot, and then put him in the dunker spot, put him in rolls to the rim, and obviously offensive rebounds. So I think a big difference. People might ask, well, why would Kofi not be NBA and Morez would? It's the range defensively, man, and the switchability that he could have, and
he can guard threes, he can guard fours.
Yep. So
and just the explosiveness. I can get that second jump is just it's springy. Kofi's got to get down, gather. So I mean, if you're a Zach Edey, yeah, that's great. But like
right.
Kofi's not that huge.
Sure, no doubt. So yeah, I do think certainly NBA upside, and the good thing is that he's not 7-1 and on the way to the NBA after this year. He should have a few years.
Couple years.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Fox, Will looks lost off ball. Brad said he gets ball handling duties in practice. He looked more comfortable end of game. What's the key to getting him going? I thought one of the keys was just letting him have the ball in his hands and working through some mistakes. Like that's been an issue. Is it's just hard to play him at times, right? Just because he's unreliable, he makes mistakes, makes turnovers, which is what a freshman does, right? But when Tre White's playing so well and you're in Big Ten games, it's hard to kind of work through some of those things. So it's tough, but that's what I liked about tonight. Like there were some flashes of good. There was also some bad with Will tonight, but at least he got to work through those things on the court, Derek. He just needs to see some shots go down. He really just needs some shots to go down.
Yeah, I think Ben Humrichous would tell you that is one of those where that's the only cure, really. I wrote it and I said it. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I do think that kind of activity off the ball as maybe a rebounder can get him going a little bit, or just trying to play with the same kind of energy that he had earlier in the year, which I think it's gone down a few notches recently in terms of just outside of his shot making. Is he making shots or not? And obviously the answer's been no over the last month, really. We've mentioned it many times. Like, I think simplifying is, are you just catch and shoot? Like, are you open? Catch the ball, look at the rim. If you're open, pull it. Don't think about it. And
don't hesitate. Yeah.
Don't hesitate. But also, you just don't get too caught up in like, well, maybe I should put it on the ground and try to create something. And now I'm stepping back and now I'm adding to the difficulty of these shots. So he'll get on his run here. And it does remind you, though, that it's a guy that was playing AAU basketball 7 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's some of that where maybe it's caught up to him. And it's certainly not as easy, especially as you're playing high major game after high major game.
Yeah. All right, Paul, $10 super chat. I feel there's value to resting your biggest stars. It helps the others find their stride. I feel like Domas developed in TSJ's absence last year. And that's absolutely true. I still don't want Kasparas Jakucionis missing extended time here. But yes, like say Kasparas, they hold him out for USC, and that's just speculation. That's just a what-if hypothetical. You do have the chance to gain confidence. That's why I thought this was a great opportunity for Will Riley. We know what Boswell can do, but it was also a great opportunity for Humrichous. They had him. He needed to score. He needed to be aggressive tonight. So they had guys step up in that opportunity. Morez Johnson obviously was one of those two, just because one guy's out, and that's 16 points and a lot of rebounds and a lot of assists that you have to fill. And those guys had to step up into those roles, and hopefully they gain confidence from it. Just like Tre White is said to step up into a role and start to gain confidence. But hopefully Kasparas returns quickly because he is an unbelievable player.
Absolutely. No, the point's very valid because Domas really did step up.
It's just hard to rest your guys in Big Ten play.
Yeah, right. And that's not – it doesn't seem like obviously what this was tonight, but it did turn into – it allowed Ben to be a little bit more of a focal point and Morez do his thing and certainly Tre White's continue to push into being just super productive. I mean, he's now to the point of averaging more than 16 points a game since that Wisconsin home opener for the Big Ten. So that's been great as well. And you can go back. I mean, the Michigan game without Io, it allowed Trent to really become aggressive and hunt his shot, and Curbelo to be more of a focal point on the ball. And you thought that would help them in the tournament. Obviously, we know what happened, but there are those moments where it can help a team let guys just step out of their normal role into a bigger one. And then when KJ comes back, that they'll have had that momentum.
All right, Derek, it is exactly 30 minutes. I told you it'd be 30 minutes. We basically made it. I'm going to give myself.
I'm going to say you got it.
I'm going to say this one counts because we got the 30-second intro. We made it. We wanted to do a quicker one tonight. But I'll leave you with this. Ken Palm right now. Illinois projected to go 15-5 in the Big Ten. So is Michigan. Those are your two favorites. Buckle up. Illinois and Michigan are the best teams in the Big Ten. They've looked like it so far, and they further proved that tonight. Michigan proved it last night. So it's going to be a fun ride, man. Like, as you said, I think the expectations of this season and this Big Ten season have raised for this team. They've earned that.
One of us needs to drive to Kansas and sit down with Coleman Hawkins and Hunter Dickinson and watch an Illinois-Michigan game. And,
ooh, God, that's a great idea.
Isn't it?
Oh, call Coleman. Coleman, get out of line.
Right?
Let's do that. That would be an unbelievable story. Wagner would totally love that one, but I feel like you'd freaking love that, man.
That would be cool. That would be pretty cool. They could just make it easy. They could come to us. They could come to the game. Yeah. But sure. It's good to know that those teams will still be duking it out in meaningful games post those great characters through the years in that battle for sure.
And that's a March 2nd game. Wow. Oh my God! The last week here, Derek. Michigan, Purdue for Illinois. That could be the Big Ten title right there.
Man, can't wait. Can't wait.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast, especially you guys who were up late with us almost towards midnight here. More than 500 people on this. It's unbelievable. We can't thank you guys enough for the support. On your way out of YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe to us, hit the notifications bell. If you're listening on the podcast, give us a follow, rating, review wherever you get those podcasts. Subscribe to us, and they'll download automatically up there. We got plenty. There's a lot of football news going on. Illinois gets an in-state commitment from Davon Grant out of DeKalb. The last one worked out pretty good with Dre Brown out of DeKalb. They get a punter out of the transfer portal, and I had some buzz about some other transfer potential additions at Illini Inquirer. Derek will have player grades tonight. Joey's writing about Morez Johnson Jr., so go to IlliniInquirer.com. When you wake up in the morning, it'll all be there. For Derek Piper, I'm Jeremy Werner. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.